Welcome to the episode number 4 of Life On and Off the Farm. Sorry we haven't been available in the last 2 weeks, hadn't put an episode out, but we've been a little busy. Springtime's here. Had Good Friday, one of the busiest days at the co-op. Bonnie plant sale still going on. And, of course, we're doing a lot of fertilizer. And speaking of fertilizer, we bring in today's guest, Chapman Bodiford. Chapman, if you don't mind, introduce yourself, who you with, and what company you work for, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I work with GreenPoint Ag. We're kind of one of the, I guess it would be a joint venture with the co-op. They're actually our owner and also our customer. So it's a very interesting dynamic there. And I guess a little bit about my role. I'm on the advanced services team. So I'm an ag technology specialist. And anyways, I assist the stores with precision ag services.
I got you. Like, what kind of services would you say those were, from, say, calibrating machinery on up until kind of like what we've done today, meeting with growers, pretty much, and a little bit in between, right?
Yeah, that's right. So our job description is very vague. It's if you were to write it out, it'd be very hard to find the words. But we are designed to help with computers mainly. We're the computer people, the tech people. So when it comes to fertilizer spreading, we're here to help those operators at co-op stores with any kind of training they may need. We're happy to be a helping hand when it comes to calibrating, pan testing. There's a lot more that goes into fertilizer spreading than just hitting a switch and driving in the field. Right. Different products behave differently when they're spread, so we help a lot with that. Also help with another piece of the fertilizing standpoint is soil sampling. So, precision sampling or GPS sampling. We work with those softwares. We help with, training on that. We also help with, customizing fertility recommendations. That's, we're happy to meet with the store or, go with them to meet with a grower even to help educate or to help, trial different things. There's a lot of, new thoughts and new technologies out there for soil fertility practices. So we're there to aid them in walking along that journey with them.
How big's your territory? So
I am North Alabama, which is basically Talladega, Birmingham area north, and I go all the way from the Georgia line to Mississippi, and then I go into Middle and East Tennessee. So kind of that 65 corridor all the way east, into North Carolina area.
Pretty big different. I mean,
geographical area.
Yeah, and a lot of differential from those things that you probably see. So.
Oh yeah.
Well, some of the new technologies and stuff.
Hold on, Steve. Before we get into that, let's go back. I mean, we're kind of talking. Let's go back to how did you get started in ag? I mean, has you always wanted to be in ag, or what led to where you are today? I want to kind of let everybody know.
So I guess my story is both my parents grew up with ag backgrounds. My dad's family, they row crop for a living in South Alabama. And then my mom's folks, they were sharecroppers and dairy farmers in North Alabama. Now, this is way back in the, early 1900s is when they were growing up, my grandparents. So, ag's been in my blood. However, my parents wanted nothing to do with agriculture. So they are both engineers and have worked, basically an office job as an engineer all my life. So I grew up with, engineer parents, both mom and dad engineers, and then had that connection with agriculture through my grandparents. And I would say my mom's dad, my grandfather, he babysat me a lot. So, mom and dad both worked full time. So, we stayed with the grandparents a lot during summers, and after school, he would pick me up and carry me out to his cattle farm. And man, I was his shadow. Everywhere he went, I went. And the coolest thing about him was he always expected a lot out of you, no matter how old you were. He believed you could do anything you put your mind to. And the other thing was he was extremely connected to the ag community, and that's something that's always stood out to me is the agriculture community. It's amazing how many folks, work together in that, and how many folks you'll learn and meet and hear different ideas. He was always, Cattlemen's Association meetings or going to federation stuff. He was moving around a lot, being involved. And so it was interesting, just kind of, even though I didn't recognize it at the time, he was instilling in me a little bit of grain of like, man, this stuff's awesome. Like, he's all the time on the move, whether it's cows or, whatever it is. So anyways, I've always just
So it was your grandfather that planted that seed.
Yeah. Yep. And now what's interesting is he passed away when I was just about to turn 8 years old. And I don't know what it is. After that, I didn't spend a lot more time on the farm. I was, I didn't have that connection anymore. But for whatever reason, that's what I always want to do. I was like, man, if I can ever make it, I'm gonna go back right to where he was and start back up what he had.
And you've been doing that.
Yeah.
So not only do you work with GreenPoint Ag, you're also a farmer yourself. So all this stuff that you're helping people understand, you practice, you're doing it yourself on your farm.
That's right. So I guess fast forward a few more years, getting ready to go to college. I ended up going to Auburn University and majored in biosystems engineering. And the reason I found biosystems is I grew up with engineering parents, had the passion for ag. Those pretty much married each other in that degree. And I wrote college essays about wanting to be a test farm or a test bed or, man, I just love to learn about, new practices, new technologies. And it's crazy that I guess it's the Lord's will for me, but that's kind of what I get to do on a daily basis. Yeah. Didn't know it at the time, but, it's funny how things work out.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, Stephen, I'll go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to kind of get a background.
Well, and this ties in with what he just said there. What's some of the new technologies you see becoming the mainstay of some of this precision agriculture in the future?
Ooh. So you've got different precision ag realms, and that's a complex beast. I mean, you got some folks that, RTK is precision ag.
Basically, let's kind of tell you that question. Let's kind of dissect a little bit more.
Yeah.
When you come in, we had a certain technology we was working on. How much has it advanced since your time where we are today? Just say in just a few years. What have you seen the technology, the change, and what do we have to come? What are you excited about there on the technology side?
So coming in the technology space, we were able to collect data. I feel like we've gotten really good at collecting data. Mm-hmm. And the challenge that I feel like I've faced is, what do we do with the data? Mm-hmm. We're collecting all this minuscule data everywhere. How do we apply that? How does that make a difference?
We've got this great platform, AccuField, that's collecting data and, soil sampling. We're also doing, yield maps and all this kind of stuff. So we started collecting data, and it's kind of like what we talked about with a grower today. It's just we're gathering that, and man, you talked about it a little bit, the purpose of AI. So I guess today we're talking about AI, being able to develop something to go along with the gen. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I'll before I shift gears back into that, so the primary platform software that I work with is AccuField, and it is it's kind of a soil sampling platform as its main base, but it's set up to be run initially from the retailer standpoint. So it's not very much. It's not like a My John Deere where it was set up to be run at a grower facing,
right.
Because it was set up for that retailer side. So it continues to build out for retailer tools, but one of the big tools is that precision ag piece, and it does a great job of collecting data. It can collect John Deere data, case data. You got those climate pucks you can collect from, manual data. You can push all this data in there, and kind of piggybacks on to what do we do with it. So that's as technology continues to move forward, how do we find inefficiencies and create efficiencies, or how do we find new uses for economical purposes?
What do you see in the future coming down maybe the pipeline? Maybe looking, like we touched on it earlier with the AI, using a little bit more of that. I know there's some big talk like autonomous tractors, that type of stuff. What are you kind of are you seeing anything in the future that may be coming our way that may be foreshadowing what kind of technology we could be seeing in, say, 10, 20 years down the road?
I definitely think AI is going to play a much larger role as time goes on, in so many different ways. Just like the data analyzation inside of AccuField, I could see it in these spray drones, being able to identify weeds and only spot spray fields. I mean, once they get there, think about the chemical savings there.
Oh yeah.
Same thing with fertilizer spreading, being able to read the wind, being able to, there's so many different things we can't control. What happens when we have a widget that can identify that and can control that. How far out do I think we are? I have no idea, but I definitely think AI will be very groundbreaking in the ag industry.
All right, let's go back to kind of, we talked about new soil sampling. To a consumer, what do you see the most misunderstanding factor when it comes to fertility to some of your growers? Is it the not understanding like elemental value? Is it the takeoff value? What are you seeing to kind of help these growers kind of understand the whole fertility side of it?
So fertility is a very complex beast. That's a tough question.
It's a broad topic.
Well, I think the thing is there's definitely different understandings of soil fertility. I think that there's some that are there's definitely different understandings, and I think you've got to formulate. You've got science behind some of those understandings, and you need to understand those science. And I think the co-ops and what we try to do is help with that education of the scientific part behind some of those pieces there. Right. Now, the most misunderstood, in my opinion, is you get a recommendation, but what do you see in your field? How is it performing to that recommendation? Mm-hmm. And that is where you as a grower have to identify, economically is what I'm spreading. Does it make sense? Right. Am I getting the return on investment? And it's different for every scenario, every soil type. I mean, it's a very complex.
Give them the biggest bang for the buck.
That's kind of the challenge.
In our meeting today with this particular grower, you heard me ask. I say, okay, we see this, what we pulled in. Now, how's that? What you see in that field versus what is showing with the data coming back from the soil samples, and I do that just to hear their result. Well, that's a low spot in the field, or we always plant that late, or it might not get any fertilizer because it's always wet, or we always growing corn there, and corn versus cotton, that type of stuff. So I like that kind of stuff. I thought you have a question over there, Stephen.
When meeting with the farmers, what's one of the most important pieces of information that you like to try to leave with them or try to extract from them to kind of help you better serve what purposes they want to do?
At the end of the day, a lot of times in meetings, it's better to ask more questions yeah. to definitely understand, what is that farmer's goal? Mm-hmm. I mean, and every goal is different. I mean, every year's different on that goal. You may have one goal this year, and next year you've got a different goal. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by goals, those can be, economics, input wise. They can be, performance wise. They can be efficiency wise. How do I identify that, or helping them to identify that. But at the end of the day, we just want to be, an advisor, help them with any questions they may have. If we don't know the answer, by golly, we're going to try and find somebody who does.
Right.
And that as we learn more about agriculture, to me, the education piece is vital to continuing to be sustainable. For sure.
Mm-hmm. going and meeting with these growers and meeting with these retail stores, and you're able to take, a little bit back and apply it to your own farm. How has your own farm developed from where you started versus where you are now doing these practices you're telling other people to do?
So one of the coolest things about my job is being able to see so many different geographies and different grower goals or situations that they may be encountered with. And I can kind of analyze and say, okay, hey, my situation kind of mimics this guy over here. Now this situation mimics this guy over here. And how did he manage that? What was his results? So I get to see, kind of without testing, they're testing too. So we're all testing and seeing the results and saying, all right, let's try this piece here where it makes sense and try this other piece there, when the time comes. I don't know if I have a specific use case, so to speak. I don't know if that's what you're after, or if you're.
I was just saying if you kind of use, if you went like, hey, I'm gonna try this and see, just see what the results are.
Yeah.
I mean, you hadn't went that crazy and.
Well, and I will say, as I guess I'm year 5 in my farming journey, my personal farming journey. So I'm just now kind of getting to the point where I can identify something and be like, shoot, I'm going to try that and see what happens. I do know, from a cattle standpoint, last year I'd heard of a guy, he was saying, man, I tell kind of some more about my cattle side. So I took over family land that had been leased out and hadn't been really taken care of, and I understand on leased land it's just different. But anyways, pulled some samples on it. Fertility wasn't great, but hey, I did what I could afford. And then I had a lot of weed issues. So I started identifying that, and I was like, really, I think with the dollars I have available, I just need to focus on my weeds first, because otherwise my fertility is just going to fertilize the weeds.
Right.
So I ended up looking more into chemical programs, and man, there's a lot of different ones out there, and there's a lot of different timings. But in the cattle world, your main ones are going to be that spring buttercup comes up. So first year I was like, man, everybody's talking about this graze on, so I'm gonna graze on my pasture. So I did. My pasture was pretty clean throughout most of the spring, and then the summer come on, I started getting a different type of weed coming through, and I was like, man, I thought this was gonna hold on a lot better than it did. So then I got thinking, I was like, well, maybe I need to do a two pass application. Then I got to looking at my numbers again. I was like, well, man, I don't know if I can afford a 2-pass. So then I got to talking and hearing what other people were doing, which is interesting. So I do like a 2,4-D in the spring, a cheaper application, kill the easier to kill weeds. And then I'll come back in when my summer weeds come up, and they're a lot harder to kill, a lot more woody weeds. Come back in and take care of those kind of with that Duracore, Graze On, whatever has a stouter active in it. So anyways, that would be a example of kind of trying one thing and then being like, well, maybe I can do something that works better. You know? Not getting stuck and just being like, well, that's all I got, Do
you think it's giving you a better perspective and made you a better farmer personally, getting some of these different, being able to talk to some of these guys and getting some feedback on what has worked and learning about some of this, like the soil sampling and stuff, to decide, okay, well, yeah, economically I can do this and that, where, a lot of guys, if they don't do that type of thing and they just kind of guess at it, they kind of just sort of throw money in the wind. So.
Yeah, I would say definitely the economics play a role in your decisions. I do think a fella told me once, you can't manage what you don't measure. That is true for soil sampling. It's also true for your pocketbook. So I try to keep an eye on, hey, what are these dollars doing for me? What is the return? So the return on the spraying, a lot more grass growing, able to, graze a lot longer because of that. But anyways, yeah. And definitely trying something and then identifying what is that return. I think is very important.
Yeah, we kind of talked on this on the ride back, and just briefly, a lot of misconceptions we have as a retail side of a company. You know, they think that, oh, we're out to get them, we're out to make the most money that we can, and that's not the case. And your line of work, sitting in with these growers and sitting with these retailers, you come up with all kind of scenarios that, hey, basically, you tell me how much money you got to work with, and we're going to come up with the best plan. That's kind of like what we did. We spent several hours a day working with a grower just trying to say, hey, you know, let's look at this, and throw everything out there and let him have the deciding factor. Kind of go off what did you always think, you know, before you got in the job, did you think a retail store, was it kind of what you thought it was, or did that change as you started helping these people? Did you come to understand that, hey, a retail side or the agronomy side is looking out for somebody's best interest? We're actually, you know, trying to cater to them to keep them in business.
Yeah, so I had no retail experience when I come in, period. Not even in, you know, selling T-shirts or anything like that. I would say I don't know how to formulate my words on this one.
we don't a lot of time. Yeah, I know. That's why we sound the way we do.
Yeah, I know. Well, no, that's it. And I may have to restate on the question, and I know that there's editing involved in all this.
Oh no, we ain't editing.
No.
I just don't know how you can be sustainable if you don't have your customer's best interest in mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, even myself, you know, I'm a customer as well, you know, so I have to think about, you know, what makes sense for me. And those things for everybody's going to be different. And I think that's where you've got to know your operation and have folks that are out for your best interest. I think the biggest thing is helping educate people for what's out there. You know, not necessarily going to make the decision for you, but, you know, hey, here's what other people are doing, and this is the success they seem to be having, or this is the return that they're getting on this, or, you know, and for you've got to identify that for you. What may be good return from one fella may be different, you know, for you. So yeah, I don't think for the co-op in general to be in business as long as it has, I don't see how you could be, you know,
right.
I guess to me, and I could get on different talks on different salesmen that I've worked with. You know, a lot of times, a lot of folks, you know, they want to get, and I know most farmers, you know, you want the best price.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is a lot of people, they gave you their best price out the gate.
Yeah.
And they're like, that is my best price.
Right.
And so it's you know, it's different. And I don't know if different's the right word, but that, and I mean, I've even seen salesmen that they've been beat on price before, and the fella told them kind of what it was, and it was enough out there that they're like, no, you need to, you know.
I mean, I've been approached many times when, you know, somebody come to me and say, hey, I've got this price, and I was like, there's nothing I can do. Go get it.
Yeah.
I mean, go for it. I hate to lose a sale, but I know that if I could buy it for that, I would be doing it. So,
and then sometimes it's not even the same product; it's a different
right.
route. And just because it's cheaper doesn't mean that's the best route to go.
We have run.
So we do that. Some run that too, because, you know, like you said, with some of the spraying, you know, you know, well, this may be cheaper, but now you're having to make 2 passes or something. Versus if you did this, you make 1 pass, and in the long run, you're saving money. So, you know, a lot of times educating them with that, you know, will help them in the long run too. So,
well, and there's a difference too in, you know, different places. I mean, it's kind of like buying from Amazon or buying from your, you know, local store. You know, who gave you the knowledge on that? You know, there is a cost associated with service and quality of service,
Right.
For sure. Because I mean, if you order everything offline, you're taking the gamble yourself. That's a big one. There's something else I thought of that you made a good point on that it's left me.
I was in the middle of a conversation last episode, and it just went. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, got all about it.
Yeah.
Years ago, when you were new, you come over here, and you was doing all this kind of stuff, and basically Andrew and I said, "Man, how in the world do you find the time to do all this stuff and still, do your job?" And your answer was, "You have a servant's heart." How have you been able to take that and be successful in what you do and still maintain what you are today? Because you are a true blessing to us, to the co-ops. Mm-hmm. But take that mindset of the servant's heart and kind of explain that to people that may be not necessarily in your line of work but don't have a servant's heart, what it takes to develop that.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
That's a tough one.
But you saying that has stuck with me since we first met.
Yeah.
And I said, and I all the time, I ask you, you're doing all this stuff for us, and just not for us, for other locations, and I've asked you this before. I don't think I've asked you. Are you making sure you're taking the time for yourself to? Because you can get burnt out on this pretty easy.
Yeah.
And as big as your territory is, but I think from somebody that does it, you have to have that servant's heart to be able to do that. And, you may not have the answer, but I just want to take the time to thank you.
Yeah.
For what you do.
Yeah.
And my growers thank you. Mm-hmm. It means a lot. And it just, anything that I can remember from you is just that first time we met, that's what you said, and it's just stuck with me. So.
Ooh, see, I was afraid you was going to pull a funny story on me. I've got a good one.
Let's hear it.
I'll poke fun at my own self.
You can tell us the stories.
So, coming into the ag retail space, my ag background was pretty limited. Again, my connection to the ag world, passed away when I was 8. So, I kind of had a stint there where, I didn't know a whole lot about it, wasn't as involved. So anyways, I started the job, and I was actually over here visiting Seth and Andrew, and it was one of the first couple times. And I want to say we'd gone out, we were, flying the drone, looking at some cotton. And I can't remember who all was in the truck. And we're riding down the road, and everybody keeps talking about, man, squares just keep dropping. And I'm over here. I'm like, golly, man, there's a lot of talk about squares around here. So like, I'm looking hard. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And mind you, again, I had hardly any background. I was good with a computer though. I can work with a computer. And so I finally nerve up the courage. I'm like, man, what are y'all talking about these squares? And they all looked at me like I had 4 heads. And I kind of was like, wanted to laugh it off and be like, I'm kidding, ha ha. And they were like, are you serious? And I was like, I guess. And anyways, they explained, what a cotton square was. And I don't know, from that day on.
You can't miss it now.
I can't miss it now. And I will say, one thing to encourage people, man, even if it's the stupidest question ever, it's better to ask it then than to be 5 years in a job and still not.
Hey, I learn every day. I learned something today in our meeting today. Just different soil samples, recommendations from different labs, and I'm learning every day, and I'm not afraid to say, hey, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll somebody ask me a question, I don't know, but
we'll find
I got a guy.
Yeah.
Got a guy for that.
One thing, fortunate enough, working in the co-op with GreenPoint and these mergers, hey, we got a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just give us a few minutes. I'd much rather have somebody say, hey, I don't know, and just give me a BS answer versus let me call a guy, because we got several.
And that's what Seth has already, talked about, how much we appreciate you doing stuff. But that also, it helps us because that gives us another extension of, like I say, of some more answers and some more options and stuff, just so we can better serve, the farmers. So.
We got a few more questions here. We kind of going to be in closing. We're going to cut this one short. I had a lot of people say the last one.
It was a little long.
All right. So I win the lottery. Me and you going hunting. No questions asked where we're going to go, what we're going to hunt.
I'm going somewhere in Africa.
Africa.
I want some sort of safari.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like that would be.
We're just going after anything we can. No limit.
I don't think I would just be amazed to go out there and just see it. And, I don't know what I'd be after.
Some monkeys, some baboons, some elephants.
I'd just feel like I was Tarzan out there.
That's awesome. There's no wrong answer. So
Yeah.
the last one's a little bit more serious. What does agriculture mean to you?
I mean, for me, it's a way of life and livelihood. Top to bottom. I truly eat, live, and breathe it. It's all I think about. My conversations, even outside of work, are agriculture. So it's something that's very near and dear to my heart, and it's one of those things. Without it, I don't think that the rest of the world could go around. So
That's true.
I definitely, and I know I'm more biased, but I do believe, without agriculture, I mean, how do we survive? I think that's kind of what we were set on this earth to do initially.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Stephen, you have anything, Chapman? I think this has been a good one, man. Appreciate it, and hopefully get maybe Trey listens and watches it and kind of gets on. Maybe both of y'all get up here and we can go in a whole lot more of the agronomy side of it and y'all's tech team, and kind of have something to build on. So maybe get y'all up here on that. And again, thank y'all for everything y'all do. And like I said, y'all make our jobs a lot easier, especially with the ag side of it, having working on these machines, and we're able to call you and say, hey, let's look at this, or come meet with a grower. That thing makes our job a lot easier. Again, thank you.
I want to say it's a blessing to work with everybody. I don't go anywhere that there's not good people, and man, that's something you can't ask for in a job, a career. Just having good folks to work with. I always enjoy it. Nerding out with everybody.
That's awesome. Again, if you like what you're hearing, make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook. Our Facebook is Cherokee Farmers Co-op of Center. Now we've got one, Cherokee Farmers Co-op of Piedmont, and Cherokee Farmers Co-op of Jacksonville. We do have a plant sale going on right now, 5 for $20.
That's right.
Like I said, thank y'all for listening.
Thanks.